We create this fantasy of what our life together is going to be like. It's going to be absolutely wonderful whenever we fall in love. But with a narcissistic person, because there is a side to them that we actually find attractive, that's when we start to modify our behavior. We start to do things that we hope is going to please them, but also things that are going to avoid those little rejections. And because they're so subtle and they're a little piece at a time, it becomes normalized. And then sooner or later, we start to realize all of these conditions, all of these things I've been following, all of the things I have compromised in the hope of getting this version of the person I fell for. There is no rainbow, never mind a crock of gold. It's all been a load of nonsense.
Darren Magee, how do you think narcissists choose their victims?
It really depends on the person. It really depends where they are on that spectrum, and it really depends on what they're looking for. Narcissistic people tend to have very superficial level relationships. There's no real emotional depth to them. A lot of their relationships, their interactions tend to be transactional. So sometimes you might find someone who is looking for someone who might have some kind of status, who's going to enhance them somehow. It could be the most attractive person at the party. It could be someone who comes from a wealthy family, someone who has, they've climbed the corporate ladder. So this person's going to enhance them somehow. Sometimes they might just be looking for anybody who's going to pay them attention, anyone who's going to listen to their tales of bravado or their tales of woe. Sometimes they might be looking for someone who is maybe hurt, wounded somehow, maybe struggling somehow. So they're looking for someone that they can maybe easily manipulate. It really depends on their agenda. There are so many different variables. So it would be hard to know where to start.
Yes. It seems the themes there are someone who's sort of flattering or someone who's an easy target. Are we kind of getting it narrowed down?
Yeah. If they meet someone who is maybe assertive, someone who doesn't particularly need anything from them, someone who's not overly impressed, someone who's not going to overly sympathize with them, chances are they'll stop it. They'll just move somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But quite often they will find someone, if they're looking for a friend, a partner, something like that, what can commonly happen is they will spend a few minutes. I always liken this to the salesperson. Do you ever meet one of those salespeople that you just can't with them? They're overly friendly. They're your best friend within 30 seconds. Yeah. They're a bit like that. So they want to find out a little bit about you. Very quickly, the conversation will more likely become about them. But if there's something about you they're interested in, something that they can utilize, they will find out about you. Where are you from? What sort of things are you into? And very quickly, the more manipulative type, if you want funny, they're the most hilarious person you've ever met. If you want brave, they have fought off dragons and things. They are absolute. If you want romantic, they could stand outside your window with a rose in their teeth playing the guitar. They become the very thing that you like, the very thing you think you need. In some cases, the very thing you think is missing. Someone who's going to protect, they will become that person who will protect you, someone who will heal you, someone who will complete you somehow. One way or another, they will morph into whatever it is they think you need. Mm-hmm. And then that's how they get you hooked.
Yes. And Darren, you mentioned that they will find this out. And there's a phrase that I've heard you use in your videos that they induce conversation. How do they induce conversation?
Well, again, there's many different ways they can do that. There's many different reasons why they would do it. Sometimes they might just induce a conversation so that as soon as you start talking, they can jump in with their experience and why they know better and so on. Sometimes they will do it because they're really fishing for information. They want to know something specific. Sometimes they might do it because what they're trying to do is to get you to say something that they can use. They can use at some point in the future. They might want you to share your deepest fears, your biggest regrets, your shames, your relationship with your dad, or how that last relationship worked out. Well, one way or another, they could be trying to fish for some kind of information. That information is stored for whenever they need it. And out of nowhere, you're having a disagreement, you're having an argument or whatever, and out comes the thing that you did wrong back when you were 15 years old, which is evidence of what a horrible, bad person you are today.
Mm-hmm. So they do it for control, validation, and manipulation seem to be the themes that I've understood from your work.
Yeah, that's generally the MO of narcissistic people. It's about control, it's about domination. When we talk about validation, I think it's more, it can be validation. There is an element to validation. I think it's, in some cases, it's more collusion. They want people to collude with them. They want to collude with their fantasies, their very skewed version of themselves, of the world, even the version they have of you. They want you to collude with that as well. So yeah, on one hand, it is validation. They want you to think that they are special, they are unique, they are entitled, they are deserving of special treatment and so on. They have been, the only reason they're not a millionaire is because they have been cheated somehow, you know. So they want that kind of validation, but a lot of the time I think it's they want you to collude with them as well.
Mm-hmm. And they want you to collude with them in what you become to, in sort of that sense of who you are, that sense of self. Is it a change of identity? What is that part about?
If you first meet a narcissistic person and you're getting to know them, maybe you go on a couple of dates. Again, they're going to be funny, witty, charming, things like that. They're going to be very attentive. Again, they're picking up, looking for information. The more you get to know each other, what happens, and this will happen in any kind of romantic relationship, we start to create this fantasy of what our life together is going to be like. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. This person has my back. It's going to be, you know, I'll have more sex than I can eat. We're going to be so successful. We're going to, you know, it's everything I think is missing in my life. We both do that whenever we fall in love. But with a narcissistic person, there is still that fantasy. But remember, it's like superficial. It's surface level. And a lot of the time it could be telling you not just what they want, but maybe what you want to hear. But then as time goes on, and what you find is you're a human being, which means you're flawed, which means you forget things, which means you make mistakes. The narcissistic person, that's like, hold on a minute, you've been lying to me. Even though I've created this fantasy about you, you're lying to me. You're not the version I thought you were. And that's when you get not necessarily a complete discard, but what you start to get are little minor rejections, little minor abandonments. It's like going for a hug and they pull away. Or you're arranging a night out. You know, I've got babysitters or whatever, you know, and booked this table in a nice restaurant. Just before you leave, there's an argument to ruin the evening, or just before you leave, they have a terrible headache. So you either can't go, or there's no way you're going to be able to enjoy yourselves. Okay, there's always going to be something. Because we had bought into the fantasy as well, and because there is a side to them that we actually find attractive and a side to them that we like, that's when we start to modify our behavior. We start to change our behavior. We start to do things that we hope is going to please them, but also things that are going to avoid those little rejections. And because they're so subtle and they're a little piece at a time, a lot of the time we don't even see it. It becomes normalized. Okay? One day, maybe we wake up somehow or another, we watch a YouTube video, we hear someone else's story, we watch something on television, we could be, and we're thinking, bloody hell, that's me. That's what I'm in. That's what this is like. So we start to wake up a bit. And then sooner or later, we start to realize all of these conditions, all of these things I've been following, all of the things I have compromised in the hope of getting this version of the person I fell for. There is no rainbow, never mind a crock of gold. It's all been a load of nonsense. It's all been an absolute scam. The narcissistic person, from their perspective, though, you're the one who's got it wrong. You're the one who's bad. Because I am flawless, by the way. It is you who fell short of the mark. It is you who disappointed me. Your misery is all your own fault.
So Darren, in that waking up sort of moment, what do you think people should do? What do you recommend people do?
Question I like to ask people is, what can you do?
Okay.
A second question is, what do you need to do? And a third question is, how do you do it? They're very different questions. Sometimes it depends on who you're dealing with. You could be, again, it depends on what's going on with that person, where they are in the spectrum. Bear in mind, there can be other things co-occurring with the narcissism. You could be looking at things like psychopathy. It's not pleasant. You could be looking at things like borderline, where you see a lot of emotional dysregulation and so on. So you'll see a lot, there can be different things going on with it. Sometimes you could really be dealing with Hannibal Lecter. You could be dealing with Professor Moriarty. Other times you could be dealing with Wile E. Coyote. So it's always about being cautious. What are you dealing with? Although they can be very predictable, we're not always aware of what they might be capable of. So whatever you do it with caution.
Yeah. We're talking a little bit about different types and diagnoses and things, psychopathy, the borderline. What's the value in knowing those differences? It seems that they could all kind of fall under an umbrella of highly manipulative people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll answer that in two ways. First of all, human beings, I always say human beings as a rule, we don't like things that don't make sense. We don't. We like to see cause and effect. We like to see rhyme and reason. We like to see patterns. We like to understand things. Some of the things that cause us a lot of distress and a lot of anxiety, we're the only animal on the planet that needs to know things we don't know. We need to know, just like the question you asked a moment ago, what should someone do? We need to know what to do whenever we don't know what to do. So it can be useful to educate yourself on the type of person that you're dealing with. As I say, you could be just dealing with someone who's just very self-absorbed and very selfish. Other than that, there's no real harm in them, even though they're a bit toxic, even though they're difficult to manage. But then you could be dealing with someone who can be very, very vindictive and very, very spiteful. So it can be useful. Also, there is part of us that might keep thinking, this is where trauma bonding can come in, and I'll talk a bit more about that if you want me to. But there can be part of us that is still trying to bring out the best in that person. If I could only help them, if I could only reach them, if I could only make them understand I'm not the threat here, I'm on their side. Going back to when we first met, chances are some things have been telegraphed in very subtle ways. Oh, my terrible trauma. These awful things happened to me. My dad wouldn't do this, and my mum ran off with that, and my ex did all this, that, and the other, and I've got terrible anxiety. We're led to believe certain things. So what we're doing is we're given like a get out of jail free card a lot of the time. So there could be part of us is still hoping, if I just had the right magic spell, the right combination of words, I could bring out the best in them, I could fix them. Because I've seen that side of them. No, you saw a side of them. Okay? So it can be useful to educate yourself on the characteristics and the behaviors of narcissistic people and the motivations behind it, as much as other things that could be going on as well. I think it's also important, though, for people to educate themselves on themselves. Because not everybody recognizes they have been brainwashed. Not everybody recognizes they've been... I'm just thinking, our mutual friend, Mark Vicente, you've had him on your channel. I've spoken to him as well. In the NXIVM cult, a lot of things were normalized. So whenever the truth started to come out, there's almost this, hold on a minute, my whole sense of reality is now being shattered. This is not what I expected. This is not what I've been living. For some people who have been in long-term situations and environments with narcissistic people, it can be the same. This is not the person I thought. Mm-hmm. That can be really difficult for them. So you educate yourself on yourself as well, in the sense that Maybe I have been trauma bonded. Maybe I have been brainwashed. Maybe I have been led to believe certain things. The things I did to try to make it better, to fix it, to compromise, doesn't mean there was something wrong with me. It doesn't mean I was weak or anything. It means I was led to believe certain things. I thought I was doing the good thing. I thought I was doing the right thing. No, I've just been lied to. I've been manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
So you educate yourself on that person, yeah, and the sort of things they do and the things that could be going on with them. But you educate yourself on your own stuff as well. That can be very useful to help you to move forward and to break out of that cycle.
Yes. And so that we're clear too, when you say educate yourself on yourself, it seems that you're suggesting educate yourself on how this relationship dynamic has affected you, rather than something like a deep psychoanalysis going back to childhood and trying to figure all that stuff out. We want to save people time when they're in these situations, right?
Yeah, if that's what you want to do, if you want to do long-term work on yourself, by all means, absolutely. You might find maybe there's repeated patterns and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say educate yourself on your own stuff, your own reactions, you might find someone, say in a work environment, and they have a work colleague, even a manager, someone who's senior, and that person behaves inappropriately. And they might be able to assert themselves, manage their boundaries. They're not aggressive. They're just being assertive. They're being clear. They're being concise. They're being honest. Back in that situation, in that relationship with that person, they have been conditioned to respond in certain ways and they might not even recognize it. The word no is the most abusive, horrible word you can ever say. Having interests of my own is incredibly selfish. Having friendships of my own is incredibly dangerous because every single person I talk to, I get interrogated. What were you saying to them? What were you telling them? You better not have been telling them about us. Do you see what I mean? So it's a completely different environment. And when you're educating yourself on yourself, you're starting to look at some of those dynamics, some of those interactions.
Mm-hmm. And for people who might find that hard to believe, that you come to a point where you could believe saying no or having your own interests is detrimental to your relationship, what's the path that takes a person to that point?
Well, it starts, as I said, with, as we're getting to know each other, we start to become infatuated with each other. We're really interested in each other. We want to learn about each other, and we really are considering a future together. There's a lot of romance. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of fun and games. We love how we feel about ourselves when we're with someone that we feel very significant to. And this person, they call it love bombing. This person is showing us repeatedly, endlessly, all day, every day, twice on Sunday, they're showing us how significant and important we are to them. And we love that. And that's human nature. That's what happens when we fall in love. You can't stop thinking about the person, That's what we do. What we're not paying attention to are those, they often call them the red flags. The reasons we don't see them is because they're not waving them in front of us and saying, hey, look at what I'm doing. They are little, small, minor things. It could be something as simple as you call them out on something and they get very upset or very angry. But it's twisted in such a way that you've done something wrong. You've done something bad. You have upset them. Their upset proves how bad you are. Their anger proves how wrong you are because they're not normally like this. So we end up backing down. We end up apologizing. But then, Ian, I mentioned earlier, we could be going for a night out, visiting friends, visiting family. And there's a low mood. There's a bad mood. But we don't know why because they haven't said. There could even be an argument in the car there. So we're not able to relax the whole evening. And over a period of time, what we might hear are things like, I don't really want to see your family again because they hate me. And you're trying to think of, what did they do? They offered you coffee. They made you your dinner. What did they do? And you've no idea what it is. but your family hate me. They really dislike me. So please don't be asking them over. And if you want to go see them, but please don't ask me. That will morph into, even when you go in to see them, there's going to be something comes up. That's the same with your friends as well. Your friends are toxic. They're using you. You should hear what they're saying when you're not around. And it's all about isolating you. It's all about taking you away from your own support network. Narcissistic people, again, there's different motivations behind this, but they don't necessarily want you to have a support network. The last thing they would want is someone who cares about you and knows you quite well, who will start to see changes in you and point them out.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, they want you to be dependent on them. They are your world now. Another reason can be, and this is the selfish part of it, and that need for constant attention and so on. If you're thinking about something or someone else, you're not thinking about them. And that's grossly unfair, because they're supposed to occupy your every thought. So, did you see what I mean? It's about isolating people, getting away. And it's a little piece at a time. It's a little subtle rejection or abandonment. You do something nice for them and they just, but hold on, that's just cost me a fortune, You thought you'd done something really nice. You make them their favorite meal. They're not hungry. They've always wanted to go to Disneyland and you've just booked it for their birthday. I don't like traveling. And it's little pieces at a time. And what happens during that time, this is where the trauma bond comes in. We could be constantly being criticized for the things that we're doing wrong, the things we're doing to upset them, the things we're doing to hurt them, the things that they disapprove of, whatever. So we're met with this constant disapproval. And over a long period of time, what happens is that part of our brain that's hardwired to recognize danger, anxiety, things like that, it becomes almost hijacked. So it's in constant alert, where you hear about people talking about they were always treading on eggshells around this person. So they're in a constant state of anxiety and stress, waiting for the next attack, the next humiliating joke, the next rejection, the next criticism. So over a period of time, we're constantly alert, and it's like we're flooded with cortisol and things like that. Okay? So we're constantly alert, constantly anxious. But then there are still those moments where we have fun, where they laugh at our jokes, where they surprise us with a gift or something, where they tell us, I've just booked a really nice holiday for us. One way or another, we get those little things as well. So each and every time we get the approval and we get the good stuff, it's like we get a little bit of a dopamine hit. And that kind of alleviates the cortisol, so we start to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's very much how an addiction works.
Mm-hmm.
We're always doing more and more to chase the next little hit, the next little bit of approval. I would suggest after a long period of time, it's not even the dopamine that you're chasing. It's not even the good stuff. It's trying to avoid the bad stuff. But by that point, we've been there that long. We're so enmeshed in the whole thing. So we're in this constant state of alert. We're always trying to avoid the rejection and so on. And every time we get that little bit of good stuff, we think, oh, right, this is it. This is it. We're fixed now. What do you see? It's going to be wonderful. What you find is that's very short-lived. No sooner are you feeling good, you had that lovely weekend away, you had that lovely meal out. On the way home, there's probably another argument because you were wearing the wrong coloured socks or something. There's going to be something that's going to ruin it. And you're back to where you started it. And the cycle begins over again.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many elements that seem insidious to this. There's the isolation, which can come on gradually, and the target will probably be made to feel like it's their idea. Those people, they don't have my best interests. I should probably stay away from them. There's the stress. And then there's things being chipped away at slowly, while at the same time, the relationship is so intense. I think when we put all of that together, it starts to become possible to see how something as simple as saying no, having your own interests, can seem like a threat to the relationship.
Yeah. Even on just saying no, sometimes what you find is, and you will find this in relationships, you will find this in workplaces, you'll find this in cults, you will find this in little community settings, you will find this in political movement, you'll find this everywhere. Another way they do it is to control the use of language. I'll give you an example. And I was probably about 20 years of age, so I didn't know anything at the time. But I remember having a summer job where I was just like covering reception in this place just for the summer months, just to earn a few quid, you know. And there was, it was a building that had different companies working in it. And there was one of the companies, were one of these companies that, you know, all the guys were wearing sharp suits and stuff, and the girls all looked very glamorous, and they were selling, I can't even remember what they were selling something anyway. And this was back shortly after the, you know, the whole Michael Douglas thing, Gordon Gekko, you know, the Yuppies and all that. So it was very trendy at the time, these hard go-getters, you know. But I remember talking to a few of the guys, and they were saying about the culture in the place, about how you're not allowed to be negative. They don't like negs. They call them negs, negative people. They don't like negative people. And I was like, I was about 20 years of age. I was listening to Morrissey and the Smiths and stuff like that. So I was constantly negative at that age. I couldn't get my head around that. You know, I just thought that, well, surely there is a need to, you're not being negative if you're being realistic sometimes, if you just tell the truth about something. If something's not going to work, it ain't going to work. That's not negative. That's reality. It's only years later when I was thinking of that, you know, I would have loved to have maybe went into one of their staff meetings or training sessions, or to see what the office would have been like, because to not be allowed to be negative, it sounds very cult-like. It's controlling not just the language, it's controlling the mood. And say you will find that in different situations. You'll find it you find it in relationships, cults, things like that, where they control the use of language. Certain words you're not allowed to use, but other words, it's like the meaning has been twisted. It now means something else, which is why the word no could be the most cruel, selfish thing you've ever said. Mm-hmm. You know, how could you? That's such an awful word. That's a terrible word. The example I used in a video one time is a silly, banal example, but it's like the word late. To say to someone you're late, because they said they'd be there at 7 and they turn up at 7:30. And if you say to them they're late, and they get very upset, because the word late reminds them of this great uncle who died in 1932 or something. Do you know what I mean? So you're having to modify your language. I have to find another way of saying late. Do you know what I mean? And it sounds silly, but that's what you're dealing with sometimes, the control of the language, even the meaning of the words as well.
Yes, yeah, it sounds straight out of the cult playbook. I remember I had a conversation with Rick Allen Ross, who's a cult programmer, and he talked about, I believe it was the Moonies, and how if somebody started to push back against any ideas, they would say, "Oh, that's stinking thinking." They would just have these thought-killing phrases so that people couldn't even start to present ideas that were counter to the doctrine of the cult.
And I think it's interesting. I know it's a work of fiction, and these days he seems to be quoted a lot. But even if you think of in the story 1984, the whole idea of Newspeak was to get rid of certain words, eventually get rid of all these words, because what the ideology behind Newspeak was, if people don't have words to articulate what it is they're thinking, they're not going to be able to think. Never mind be able to articulate what it is really going on with them. So yeah, it's a lot of time it's about controlling language, which is why I'm just thinking sometimes it isn't even the language, it's sometimes just what's being said at all. The number of times, you may have heard this yourself from people, I've heard it from people, even if you're just trying to be clear and rational and you're saying whatever it is you're asking for, look, I don't have the time, I can't do it, I don't have the resources, you're just trying to be reasonable, or you're calling somebody out on something or whatever, it suddenly becomes about your tone of voice. It's now your tone of voice. It's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. You're now being aggressive. So the next thing you know, you're second guessing yourself. How did I say that? And how can I say the same thing without sounding aggressive? And the truth is you can't. You're playing a rigged game. In a narcissistic dynamic of any kind, no matter who it is with, you're always playing a rigged game. And a lot of the time, a lot of the mistakes people make is thinking they're dealing with someone who thinks rationally.
Yeah, and the tone of voice thing too, it makes you on the defensive. It's a way of playing the victim, I think, for the manipulative person. It's, oh, you're talking to me like that, and it shifts the focus off of what the issue may be, and certainly helps them to stabilize themselves if they're being called out for something that they don't want to be called out for.
Yeah, and you used the word destabilize. That's a very good word. You could summarize any interaction or relationship with a narcissistic person as being destabilizing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they work. They destabilize people. They do it emotionally. They will do it psychologically. They will sometimes do it financially. There's lots of different ways they would do it, but it's all about controlling people. And a lot of the time it is through destabilizing them, which is why they get rid of the support network, which is why they make them dependent. I am your reality and things like that. Your tone of voice is aggressive. Your saying no is an act of cruelty and things like that. So people are constantly destabilized, hence that heightened state of anxiety and stress, because they never know the right thing to do or say.
Yeah. One other thing they do that you have a video about that I watched, and when I saw the title, I had never heard the phrase before, but I immediately knew what it was. Dry begging. What is dry begging? How do they do it?
Dry begging it's something I've heard of recently. Now, the thing itself, the concept itself, it's something I've been familiar with in a lot of different situations. I've seen this most of my life in different interactions and so on. But the term itself is just something I'd heard of fairly recently. And I just thought, well, it's, again, now they've got a name for something, now you can identify it. Dry begging is, and I suppose before I go any further, I should say, some people do struggle to articulate their needs and their wants. And this could go the other way as well, in the sense that if someone has been in a long-term abusive, coercive relationship, the thought of asking for something that's always going to be rejected, that they're always going to be told no, they're bad for wanting and things like that, they could struggle to ask for help, to ask needs them. So it can work in a lot of different ways in different situations. But when it comes to narcissism, sometimes you're dealing with some narcissistic people. They don't, it's all about control, it's all about power. And sometimes, as you mentioned a moment ago, it's about making you think it's your idea. So it's like it's only a win for them if they get to manipulate. If they get some kind of con, some kind of skive, some kind of scheme or scam. And what it is, what dry begging is they don't actually tell you what they want. They don't tell you what they need. But there's like a series of hints. Just this little series of hints. And it could be something along the lines of, oh, damn, I wish I had one of those things. And you think, oh, do you? Oh, Christmas is coming up. I could get you one. But then you get them and they look at it and say, I didn't ask for that. Or, oh, I've no money. I don't get paid to the end of the month and I've no money. I can't even put fuel in the car to get into work. I've no idea what I'm going to do. And you feel a bit guilty. You feel a bit compassionate. There's other things being triggered in you, especially if they know you well. They know what the trigger, they know what your buttons are. So you might say, well, do you want to borrow some money? I've got money here. I mean, that'll do you to the end of the month. Now, they might be appreciative. They might be glad. Sometimes they look at it as like, is that all? But then the end of the month comes and you're looking for your money back because you need it. What do you mean you want it back? We didn't agree that. And you go, well, actually, I'm pretty sure I said, no, I don't remember that bit. I didn't even ask you for money in the first place. Do you see what I mean? So, yeah. Again, it's caught in this bind where you did something you weren't asked to do and you're being led to believe that you're the one who's being manipulative by either asking for it back or reminding them that you'd let them have it in the first place. And again, it's this little series of clues that they give. Sometimes, and it works in other ways as well. Sometimes it's not begging as such, but it's like they want you to do some work for them. I'll try to think of an example. Yeah, I could say, hey, Brad, are you free next week? Do you fancy going for a coffee? And rather than you say, yeah, I'm free, I should be able to go, or no, I can't make it, I'm busy, or whatever. Instead, what you might do is you might say something like, I can't, a family member is in some distress. And I'm, hold on, what does that mean? What do you mean distress? They've just lost their job? They can't find their car keys? They've just been diagnosed with a terrible illness? What do you mean a family member? Is this your pet? Is this your brother? Is this your wife? Is this your dad? Who? So then I start asking you questions, but you're still not giving me an answer. You're still being quite evasive. But it's like you desperately want me to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to keep on asking you questions to actually get to the point where the family member who is in distress is, yeah, my brother's lost his car keys. And you, what? So it does work in different ways. The begging part is when they're wanting something from you, but without directly asking you, but making you or leading you to believe that doing this thing for them would be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what I've seen so much of with one in particular who I've dealt with. It was as though he never asked for anything, and yet he always was needing people to comply with his commands. And it was strange to watch. And it was only after I got space from him, and then I was kind of writing things down and trying to make sense of the situation, and I had text messages and things like that that I could go through. And the language I realized was so bizarre in that there was never a request. There was always sort of a bait instead.
Yeah. I think that's a good term, bait. Yeah. A lot of the time it's bait. It's a little bit of a hook, and it's something to draw us in. Mm-hmm. And it's that bait is a very, very common tactic on so many different levels. Mm-hmm. When it comes to narcissism, it's very manipulative. The bait could even be, okay, you've threatened me, you're going to leave. Why don't we have that holiday in Disneyland? Or, I know you don't like your car. It's been playing up. I know you need to get it fixed, and I know you're strong. I'll pay for it for you, sure. You know, I'll help you out somehow. It's these promises, not just of a brilliant future, things like that, but it's these promises of I will do the things. Remember, I will be the things you need. I'm the only one who can give you what it is you feel is missing. I'm the only one who can help you. So yeah, the bait is there to either draw people back in or to keep them there. Even if that promise they're making, whatever it is, it's always on the long finger. It's always somewhere over the horizon. There's always some way that you fell short, so they don't have to deliver it, but it's still there. And I'm just thinking, just what comes into my head. When you're in a long-term environment with someone who is very, very manipulative, very Machiavellian, in very subtle ways. Remember, there's the criticisms, there's the arguments, there's the rejection, but there's also the good stuff as well. Someone can become conditioned to believe the only person who can help them, the only person who can heal them, is the person who is hurting them.
Yeah.
They're going
the phrase I've heard is that your tormentor becomes your soother, that you get stuck in this loop.
Yeah. And it's, I know it's a very graphic example, but the example I would think of, even it's just a one-off little event. Did you ever watch that movie, The Marathon Man?
No. What's it about?
It's Dustin Hoffman. He's in it. It's set sort of like in the late 70s, early 80s, and it's this ex-Nazi who's trying to find the diamonds that they'd hidden during the war. He's a war criminal. But he was a dentist, like an SS dentist, torturer type thing. And he captures Dustin Hoffman and has him strapped to a seat, and he wants to know where the diamonds are. And he doesn't know anything about them. He doesn't know about diamonds. And he drills a hole right through the front of his tooth. Yeah, I've just seen your reaction. It is it's a horrible scene. And he is screaming in agony. But then after he does that, gives him some medicine, a little bit of clove oil or something to ease the pain. So the only person who can help you is the person who is hurting you. Now, that's a very extreme example, and it's just a one-off little thing, but quite often that's what happens.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
It seems with the dry begging and even with the inducing conversation that there's something to it where the narcissist isn't exposed to potential rejection from others or even, a dialogue about their request, because there's not going to be any back and forth if you're getting manipulated into the thing in the first place. What is that the motivation? What are the motivations behind this kind of behavior?
Well, again, it depends on the person and where they are in
Yeah.
the spectrum. But as I say, sometimes you have someone who only gets a sense of power over getting one over on other people. And sometimes you will find some of these people that do get into high positions of responsibility in the workplace or whatever. They don't necessarily feel good about their position or their responsibility or even who they have control over. They get a sense of power over who is afraid of them, who they terrorize, and so on. What you find with really, really, I don't like using the term, but I hope you get what I mean. People who are really good at what they do when it comes to manipulation.
Yeah.
They can do things, again, making you think that it's your idea or making you think you're at fault, and they will do that in many different ways. They can make you feel as if it's your idea. Again, you're the one who offered to help. They didn't actually ask. You're the one who kept asking questions about what's going on in my life, this terrible thing that's going on. I didn't want to tell you. Okay, so again, there's a little power dynamic going on there, even though they're getting you to do all the work. Narcissistic people, they like the attention, they like the admiration, they like people to solve their problems. A very common thing what you'll find with covert narcissism is they will tell you all the terrible things that have happened to them, the way other people have treated them, the way they've been cheated, the way they can't do such and such because of whatever's going on with them. But then that part of us that is sympathetic, we have empathy, we have compassion, and we'll think, well, have you tried this? Or have you considered doing that? And what you often find is every solution you offer will have a problem because they're fine where they are. But what they like the thought of you doing is being very creative in trying to come up with ideas to help them. Again, sooner or later, you lose your patience. And you're, okay, do you know what? You just seem fine as you are, so I'm not going to bother. But then the next thing you know, you are the horrible person because you have abandoned them because they are so weak. They are so helpless. They are so needy. So either way, they're winning. They're winning. They're getting their supply if you're doing what it is they want, but they're also getting their supply from other people if they get to tell them what a horrible narcissist you are for not helping them. Mm-hmm. One way or another, it's about control. Another aspect of that can be, again, this is when you get someone who is very, very highly skilled at manipulation. They can control you through the rules, through the law, through whatever it is. About the Nurse Ratched character, and what you have with this character is someone who was responsible for looking after men with mental health problems, mental health issues who were in a psychiatric ward. But she was very controlling and very dominating. And she did it by using the rules. She didn't break any rules. If anyone was to put in a complaint, for example, go to good old human resources or whatever, she hasn't done anything wrong. So you get people who are very, very good at manipulation. They will use the rules. Even if you call them out in work, the next thing you know, there's a grievance in because you were aggressive. Mm-hmm. But it's only aggressive from their perspective. Okay, the fact that you call them out at all. Sometimes they don't even use the rules. What they will do is they will use whatever they think the rules should be. So they just get made up on the spot. And they're constantly shifting, depending on whatever suits their agenda.
Mm-hmm. So when we see the dry begging, what can be done to manage it?
Well, I often say this is about boundaries, okay? Now, when we talk about boundaries, I like to boil them down to their bare minimum, and that is what's mine and what's yours, okay? I also like the idea of if we're not sure, just ask. If someone is saying, this is terrible, I have no money till the end of the month or whatever, why not just ask them, what is it you're asking from me? That, give them their own work to do. It's the same as whenever you say, you can't treat me like this, this is not on or whatever, you're having to defend your boundaries. That person's not listening to a damn word you're saying. I think it becomes easier when you give them their own work to do and you don't explain why your boundaries are important. You ask them to explain why they think they're not. Okay? That works so many ways. You're not always going to get the answer you want. Sometimes you're going to get a lot of floundering. Sometimes you're going to be told that you're a horrible, nasty, abusive, narcissistic person for treating them like this. But one way or another, you're giving them their own work to do. If you were to say, when it comes to the dry begging, are you asking for my help? Give them the opportunity to say yes or no. The reason I do that is because earlier on I mentioned some people do genuinely find it difficult to ask, which is fair enough. But if that narcissistic person, if they don't give you a yes or no and they start going on about, yeah, but it's really terrible and it's this, that, and that. Yeah, but that didn't answer my question. What is it you want? Do you need my help? Do you want to borrow money? Would you like me to get you this for Christmas? Is that what you're asking for? You just keep on giving them their own work to do.
Yeah, the language there is, are you asking for X? It seems to really cut to the heart of the situation.
Absolutely. Get to the point. Again, in narcissistic relationships, there's a lot of cloak and dagger. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And that's part of the destabilizing, trying to navigate through that. And sometimes, again, looking at recovery from things like narcissistic abuse, it's about learning about yourself, as I said earlier. You go back into reality. What is it the person's actually saying? What is it the person actually wants? What is going on with you at the moment? Is there part of you that feels not necessarily triggered, but there's something this person does? It's like a cue.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as something happens, that's your cue. I have to help. As soon as this person says something, that's my cue. I have to shut up. Okay. So you learn about those things as well. And when you start getting back into reality, again, yeah, you just give them their own work to do. Ask them, what is it you're asking me? Why are you telling me this? Why is this important?
Mm-hmm. And Darren, for you, if you don't mind sharing, I wonder what got you into this topic. I mean, talking about manipulation all day could seem draining in its own right.
It's an interesting question. When I first started YouTube, I did it more as like a hobby. This was during lockdown, and previously I would have written articles on a variety of different things. I would have put them on my own website, or maybe someone else's contributed to certain things. And I thought I'll try something different. I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone. I'm not embarrassed to say this. I'm not being overly humble. I'm just telling the truth. I am not a natural presenter. Okay, I don't feel like a natural presenter. I do not like talking to a camera. I find it easier to talk to people, which is why my live streams always look different from my recorded videos. But I thought I would push myself out of my comfort zone. And I was looking at the advice that you were getting back then in 2020. It was saying things like ways to engage with your audience. So I thought, okay, best way I could do that is I will ask people, what do you want me to talk about? To this day, about 90 to 95% of the requests are about narcissism. So that's the reason.
And what's it been like for you to help people with this? I mean, to take that feedback and then to keep giving it back to people. What's that experience been like?
I do like, if I'm doing a live stream, I like to keep things different. If I'm doing a video, I'm talking about the how and why. I'm talking about the motivations. I'm talking about personality types. I'm talking about relationships, mental health, personality types. Talking about a wide range of things, and I try to explain it as it is. I try to do it without the drama and without the sensationalism. Sometimes I know my sarcasm comes through, but that's just me. When I'm doing the live streams, I talk about something different. I like to talk about how to handle these situations. So I try to keep that different. I do like the feedback that people find it interesting, that they find it validating. I'm not overly academic. And I think that resonates with a lot of people, that I try to put it. I always believe if I can understand it, you can as well. Okay. So I do like that people get something from it. They feel validated. But I also like when I'm doing the live streams that someone might comment that they tried something that I'd said a week or two ago and they found it really helpful. So yeah, I get something from that. Of course I do. Maybe that's my narcissism, my communal narcissism. But yeah, I get something from that. It's really nice. It is good. Something I think social media is good for some things. It's not so good for other things, but it is good in the sense that there's a lot of information out there. It's not all good information, but there is some good information out there. The number of people who might watch a YouTube video, whether it's me, whether it's someone else, and all of a sudden it's like a light bulb goes on. This is what I've been dealing with. So it's really, really good for that. It's really, really helpful. There is something very validating for people to find out. The whole time I was told it was me. I was the problem. I was at fault. This person here has just listed 5 or 6 things, which is everything they do and have accused me of. So there is something really nice in that you're helping someone to recognize what's going on with them, but also helping them to find a way to navigate through or around whatever it is, or even out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, Darren, you mentioned things that they do and accuse me of. How does a narcissist make the victim look like a villain?
Sometimes they will do it in a very skillful way. Again, your tone of voice, you're being aggressive, you're bullying me, you're being a horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they will do it because you're using language that really triggers my anxiety. You won't give me access to your passwords. Clearly you have something to hide. Um, it took you 10 minutes to go out and get milk. It only took you 8 minutes last night. What were you up to? Yeah, a lot of different stuff going on. But what they often do is they take those parts of themselves that they don't like and they dump them onto other people. Now, this is the thing. We all have parts of us that we don't like. We all have aspects of us we don't like. We all have things in our past that we're embarrassed about or maybe ashamed of, even things that we deeply regret. Sometimes we suppress these things. Sometimes we learn from these things. And sometimes we learn about those parts of us that are unacceptable. I mean, Jung called this our shadow. The parts of us that are unacceptable, not just to ourselves, but to other people. When we integrate those things, we don't have control over them. But when you're a narcissistic person is flawless. They are perfect. They don't have a shadow self. They are the most self-aware person you'll ever meet. They have done tons of work on themselves. They are absolutely amazing. They don't have a shadow self. And what they do is what Jung described as they dump it onto everybody else. You are the selfish person. You are the abuser. You are being manipulative. You're the one who cheated based on the evidence I've created in my head. All of that sort of thing. They take no ownership of any of it. It's everyone else. Mm-hmm. And that includes those closest to them.
Mm-hmm. So they dump it onto that person, and then the manipulation seems so convincing that people will come to believe it. I think we've talked a little bit about how we are conditioned to believe things from a narcissist. Anything more to add with this idea that the victim is the villain?
Something that a narcissistic person will do is what's known as triangulation. And that's when they start to bring in other people. Those other people reinforce their narrative. Those other people, sometimes they call them flying monkeys, which comes from The Wizard of Oz. Those little monkeys were the creepiest, even at the age I am now, even the thought of one. They were the creepiest looking little things you ever seen, with their little waistcoats and their hats and their, they were just creepy little things. They bring in these people, they bring in other people. That could be a third person, that could be a group of people. And these people are going to maybe enable the narcissist, the narcissistic person. And they will do it for different reasons. First of all, they might do it just because they're naive. They don't have the full story. They don't know the full context. They think they're doing a good thing. They're trying to settle any conflict. Sometimes they will do it because they're afraid, because they know what that person's capable of, and it's best to be on their side rather than be on the wrong end of that vindictiveness. Sometimes it is people who are just as toxic and they get a kick. This is the sadistic side of the dark personality. They love to see people flounder. They love to see them in distress. They love to see them in pain. They're getting fed by that. They're getting their dopamine hit from that. So they bring in other people to reinforce their narrative that you are the bad person. Sometimes they won't even bring people in, but what they will do is they will make it look as if there are other people present, make it look as if other people are involved. And that's just something as simple as, I was talking to Dave yesterday. He was really shocked that you would say that. And you're, what? Or one of the most common threats you will ever get, and this is worded in different ways. What would your friends think if they knew what you were really like? What would your family think if they knew what you were like? What would this person think? What would they do in work if they knew the kind of person you were? When they're bringing in other people, triangulating, or even those threats, what they're targeting is your fear of other people's opinion, your fear of public opinion, your fear of being rejected, of being ostracized, of having your reputation destroyed. Part of us, yeah, that is scary. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want people thinking these things of us. And other times we would just be too embarrassed. If this person's threatening to ring my work, my partner, my ex-partner's threatening to ring up my workplace to tell them what a horrible person I am, I'm not afraid of the work finding out. I'm just embarrassed that the work would know I'm with someone like that. So different things are coming up for us, and we tend to back down. They're going to think this of you. They're going to think that of you. Yeah. We might not actually believe that we are the villain, but there is that part of his fears being seen as the villain.
What do you think are the fears that are played on by narcissists?
Again, I'll answer this in two ways, but first of all, the main ones they will target is your fear. Mm-hmm. Your fear of public opinion, your fear of rejection, your fear of abandonment, your fear of consequences. The second one is your conscience, your guilt, your shame. Okay? You're a bad person for not doing this. You're a bad person for not colluding. You're a terrible bad person. Look at the pain and misery I'm in because of you. Okay? And again, if other people were to know, again, that is your fear, but it's also your conscience as well. There's those things going. Your sense of duty and obligation as well. You're supposed to be my best friend. You're supposed to be my work colleague. I've known you X number of years. We're married. You're doing this, all the other stuff. So it's your sense of duty, your sense of obligation. Okay. So they will target those things mainly. However, what they will target are the things that are important to you. That could be your relationships with other people. That could be your reputation. That could be that thing that your dad left you or whatever. It could be your property. It could be whatever. They will target and they will utilize and manipulate, leverage the things that are important to you in order to get you to comply, which is one of the reasons why in relationships where there's children and there's a narcissistic person is not the reason, but one of the reasons you hear about things like parental alienation is what they're doing is they're leveraging the other person's relationship with their children because that relationship is important to them. If you want to see the kids, you're going to have to comply. If you even if you want to come and visit, you're going to have to comply. If you want this thing from me that I have that belongs to you, this piece of property, whatever, if you want it back, you have to comply. So they will leverage those things that I mentioned earlier, but it's the things that are important to you, the things that you hold dear. Whatever that is, it could be anything. That's what they'll hold over you.
So the fears that they're after, it's not any one fear. It's whatever your greatest fears are that they can access. It's the maximum point of pain.
Yeah. It's anything at all that's important to you. Anything at all.
Yeah.
When you're together and when you're in that situation, if it's important to you, it's not that big a deal. They don't care. In fact, if you're spending time on that, you're not paying attention to them. So it's a bad thing. Either that or it's a waste of time. Or anybody could do that, or sure, everybody has one of them, or whatever. It's not that big a deal. It will be diminished and devalued. But when there's any kind of conflict or any kind of trying to break away or break free, all of a sudden, no, hold on, I think you'll find that's mine. You can't have it. And if you do want it, you're going to have to put up a fight. Yeah, it's anything that's important.
Mm-hmm.
It could be your property, could be your reputation, could be your family, could be your job. Anything at all.
Yeah. So Darren, you have developed such an understanding of these dangerous, manipulative people. One debate that comes up a lot on my interviews is, where does it come from? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it genes? Is it childhood trauma? What do you think makes a person like this?
I think it always goes back to that debate. Is it nature? Is it nurture? Some of the research that I'm looking at these days is showing that it's both. It's a large part of both, to different degrees, but it's largely both. And because if it's just narcissism, by the way, because that manifests in so many different ways, there are different ways that can. First of all, you could have a child. Let's imagine a child who learns that they are only of value if they do something that pleases the parents. They got a part in the school play. Parents not really that interested because it should have been the lead role. Okay. They came second in the race, even though everybody else cheered. Parents not even noticing it. Won't even acknowledge it. So they learn that if they do really well, they get that positive regard from mum and dad. But if they don't do so well, even if they put in their greatest efforts, the best they can, they might be criticized, they might be flawed, they might be laughed at, they might be ridiculed. So there can be that. They learn they are only of value if they are the best, if they have the best, if they can do the best. So what you find is someone who grows up who still believes they have the shiniest toys, the best toys, and all the rest of it, You could have a child who learns they will only get attention if they serve the need of the parent. So they're losing their own needs. So they grow up. They can grow up, there's a lot of people-pleasing behavior, but they can grow up to be quite covert because they were getting positive regard by making it look as if they were serving the parent, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They became manipulative themselves. Can go the other way. You can see people-pleasing behaviors sometimes develop and low boundaries and things like that. Sometimes you will find someone who has never had to struggle for anything. It's like they were wrapped in cotton wool. They never had to maybe risk failing an exam or something. They never had to do the exam in the first place. So they've no resilience to things like disappointment. They've no understanding of give and take. They got their Christmas presents whenever they wanted them. They didn't have to wait till Christmas morning. Do you know what I mean? There was no delayed gratification, things like that. What you find with kids like that when they grow up, they would have got a lot of things. They didn't necessarily, the parents were mistaking things for love. They have the best things. They have the nicest clothes. They have the best toys, and they only get to play with certain kids that we approve of and things like that. So there's no resilience to give and take. There's no resilience to things like failure. So that's one of the ways you can get a lot of entitlement. They go out into the workplace. They leave school, maybe they leave college, university, whatever it is, and they want to know why they're not the CEO. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're maybe 20, 21, 22 years of age, and they're wondering, what do you mean I have to go and work in a bar or a restaurant until I get the job that I want? And even then I might have to start at the lowest rung of the ladder. What do you mean? No. So they've no resilience to that. And there's a lot of resentment and a lot of envy, not even among their own peer group. It might look at someone who's maybe been working for 30 or 40 years. And they're looking at that person with envy. You have taken something from me. How dare you? So there's no concept of you've been doing this since before I was born, So that there are a lot of different things can lead to it. I don't think it's one linear path. Sometimes it's a combination of things.
Mm-hmm. And Darren, you're mentioning this comparison, and you've written about the self-esteem of others and how it seems narcissistic people, there's a comparison orientation. What makes it so much one versus the other rather than collaborative or even just the pursuit of excellence? It's like the metaphor of wanting to have the tallest building in a city by knocking down all the other buildings. And
Yeah.
why not pursuing a taller building? What is this comparison element?
Well, first of all, what you've said would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Narcissism generally doesn't make sense. Unless you know what it is you're dealing with. A key characteristic of narcissism is competitiveness.
Yeah.
Hyper competitive. Another characteristic is envy. Now, that is one of the diagnostic criteria, being highly envious, but believing others are envious of them. Now, I would take it further that they believe not only are others envious of them, they should be envious of them. And if they are not envious of them, then they are lying because they're supposed to be. I like how, I know you've interviewed him as well, Richard Grannon. I like how he phrases it. With narcissism, it's often what you're looking at is a rejection of reality. I tend to, they have an adverse reaction to reality. That's how I like to phrase it. So you get this envy, which I think often goes hand in hand with jealousy. I know they're different things, but they often go together. Okay. And you get the hyper competitiveness as well. So I'm talking about self-esteem. If you think of self-esteem, in fact, anything you put the word self in front of, like self-respect, self-confidence, self-worth, not in every single case, but in a lot of cases, it's not so much what I think of me. It's what I think you think of me. It's what other people think of me. Okay. And just to make a point, if you're talking to someone, they're making eye contact, they're laughing at your jokes, answering your questions, you generally feel okay. If you're talking to someone who just waves their hands and tells you to shut up, you have nothing interesting to say, you don't feel so good. Okay. So it's not so much what I think of me, it's what I think other people think of me. Because of the hyper competitiveness, because of the envy, because of the jealousy, because of this deluded sense of superiority, narcissistic people only feel good about themselves if they're feeling superior than others. So it's not, and even when it comes to the envy, it's not necessarily that you have something they don't have. It could be that you have it at all, even if what they have might be better. Now, with grandiose narcissism, it's not that big a deal. They're still going to see themselves as superior regardless. And things like covert narcissism and all the other ways that it can manifest, the fact that you have it at all, that does bring up envy in them, but also jealousy. Because the fact that you're feeling good at all means you have taken something from them. That is an act of defiance. How dare you? You've betrayed me. Even something as simple as a good day at work.
Yeah.
You know, I had a really good day at work today. Someone brought in donuts. It was really good with a longer lunch than usual. You know, the boss was really chilled out. Hold on a minute. You had a good day and that had nothing to do with me. Well, I'm glad you had a good day because I had to work extra hard. There was no one else in and I had my sleeves rolled up and I didn't get to stop all day. But hey, you had a great day, so whoopee to just see what I mean. You have taken something from them. You've denied them something. And it's very petty and it's silly sometimes. But the fact that you have anything, the fact that you could do anything at all, it's like an affront to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a challenge to them. But it's the fact that they don't want you to have it at all. And a lot of cases, what you find is if they don't want you to have it, they will destroy it. It's a very destructive personality type.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Darren Magee, this is a thing that doesn't make sense. As you said, narcissism just doesn't make sense. For people who want some help in making sense of it, before I ask my last question, where should they look for you online?
You can find me on YouTube. I have my channel. It's just my name, Darren F. Magee. You can find me on X, formerly Twitter. I don't do a lot there because, well, the only stuff I do there is when I look at how some of these personality types manifest online. Other than that, I don't do a lot there. But you can find me on Instagram as well. Sometimes I put little things there, but mostly if you want me, you'll find me on YouTube.
Great. We'll put a link in the description for people to check out. And Darren, my last question is, we talked a little bit about self-esteem. After a relationship with someone like this, what can people do to rebuild their self-esteem?
Like I said earlier, you recognize it for what it was. You were with someone who maybe did not or would not acknowledge your worth, your value as a human being for a variety of reasons, but you can sum it down to either they couldn't or they wouldn't. I often say that the antidote to toxic people are decent people. Okay? And it's where, however you do it, it doesn't have to be with a best friend. It could be with anyone. Pay attention to those positive little interactions where people just treat you decently. They smile at you. They, they thank you. You just hold the door open for them. Try to form and build healthy relationships outside of that relationship. Sometimes it can take a little bit of humility, but that's not a bad thing. The narcissist in your life probably told you humility is a sign of weakness, but that's just because they're narcissists, you see. It might take a little bit of humility, but try to reconnect with some of the people that you might have lost, even if it was years ago. Sometimes they might be surprised. Sometimes they might have moved on and they're not that fussed. That's okay. You haven't lost anything. But sometimes you might find that they're pleased to hear from you and they'd love to reconnect with you. And if it means forming new connections with new people, yeah, by all means, go ahead. As I say, the antidote to toxic people is healthy people. Find healthy people.
Well, Darren Magee, for that clear suggestion, your wisdom without the drama on the topic of narcissism, thank you so much, and thank you for taking this interview.
Well, thank you for having me on.
To help raise awareness about narcissistic abuse, please share this video. It helps a lot.